You are now listening to You Heard.
Today on the You Heard podcast, we have the awesome and amazing Charlie. Say hello.
Woo woo! Hey everybody!
I met Charlie in college, and we actually did a project together in one of my favorite classes in the communications department, and it was actually about catfish, and that was probably one of my favorite projects that I ever did in college. Charlie is this amazing, beautiful energy who is going to be sharing her experience today about authenticity. The floor is yours to start.
Yes, hi everyone. So yes, I love that class. We had so many projects and cool stuff, and I'm like, now I know like deception is so real, but it's crazy because I also watched the Catfish TV show, and I'm like, I can figure this out in 10 seconds. Like, I know this person catfish. I'm so excited to be here, and thanks for inviting me. But yeah, really looking forward to kind of share where I'm at and kind of what I'm working on. So I guess to kind of give you a little background about me, and because a lot of this stems from a lot of how I grew up and things like that. So a lot of people actually don't know, but when I was young, both of my parents passed away. So my mom had like breast cancer, and she passed away when I was 6, and my dad, he had like a heart attack, and he passed away when I was about 10 years old. So during that time, I have 3 siblings, and they're like 7 years older than me. So for a while, we were like living in the house with like no like real parents, like that for a while. But then, as all good things happen, social services and schools found out. And just because of how young I was compared to them, I had to kind of go live with a family member. So really during that time, once I kind of moved into that situation, it really was not a good situation, very abusive household. So I really had to kind of learn how to maneuver and really seeing, like different things. Like I would get in trouble. They would like cut my hair off, cut my eyebrows off, and all kinds of like crazy stuff. So I really looked like I had to really be hyper vigilant of their behaviors and then adjust willing. So if they're having a bad day, I'm going to disappear, be light. If they're having a good day, I can be around. So it's really just wearing
survival mode.
Yeah, survival mode, wearing like 7 different masks. But social services transitioned me to living with my oldest brother, and it's just as a continuation of different life experience. I really just have kept on these masks that I've gathered through life. So like, with one group of friends, I'm one person. At work, I'm one person. I am like 5 different people. And at this point, I'm like 26, and I'm like, these are no longer serving me. I don't know why I'm doing them. It's just a lot. I still remain hyper vigilant. So I think I'm a pretty adaptable person. So like I read people energy and then I adapt that way. But then it's like, who are you really? What do you care about? What do you like? So like in this past 2 years or so, I was in like a very long-term relationship, for like over 9 years. And then it ended in like I would say Love and Hip Hop reality TV ending. So, like, with that, I was just like, okay, I can't do this anymore, so I need to figure out what I like. I need to be able to communicate my boundaries, because I just don't like the person I'm becoming. So, I just been really working on that, creating boundaries, and just trying to figure out who I am, and I know it's going to be an ongoing journey, but really, stepping into those places. But like kind of with like that relationship, like I was younger. Well, I met him in like high school, which is, and he was like a senior and I was like a sophomore. And we were just doing overtimes, and it was like experiences that he wanted to do. Obviously, he's like, I'm 19 and I haven't kissed a girl. So I'm like, all right, is this important to you? Here you go. Like, oh, what do you want? You want a girl to do this? Oh, here you go. Like, I was just like, oh, whatever, kind of to make you kind of stay. But like I said, that was just really a lot of stuff I was doing to really adapt myself to be someone's dream person. Like, and I think I'm very goal focused and mindful of that. So I'm like, okay, I know what you are like, so how can I be the best person to you that you could never say anything negative about me, because like I'm doing everything that you like. But then that's also like very exhausting because people have different like views of stuff. So some people are like, you know, this is what I really like. Like, I like someone who's outspoken. Then people are like, oh, if you just are chill or low key. So I'm like, all these different personalities that is really hard to keep up with.
It sounds exhausting, but I've been there myself, so I completely understand.
Yes, yes. And I think like even in college, a lot of times like, I had certain groups of friends pretty much everywhere, but then I kind of looked around when I was in college. I'm like, none of these people know me for real. Like, they don't know the real Charlie. Like, they'll see me walking around like, hey, Charlie, we love you. My friends called her. She was like, my crew of friends, they always say, like, bitches love Charlie. Because, that song that's like, bitches love Sosa or whatever. And she's like, bitches love Charlie. Because everyone's like, Charlie, you're my best friend forever. So it was just like, yeah, but like when I was going through things, I just felt like I wasn't able, because I had an image, I wasn't able to really share it without diminishing what I already put into place. So like, and just seeing like, no, it's no one I can really go to tell my stories. And especially like, even in my family, right, I want to have a certain reputation, but like when you're struggling with guys and you're like, I hooked up with somebody, but I kind of need some advice, but you don't want them to know that you curse or have sex, then you're like, I can't talk to you. You're like, so this guy texts me. You're like downplaying the whole situation. So really just working on, being myself and creating boundaries. And I think what's interesting about learning about boundaries is like, I think people create them two ways, and I'm gonna ask you too. So I've been like looking up boundaries and stuff, but like some people are like, I'll create a boundary like kind of proactively. So they're like, okay, so even if I enter a new situation, you can never like do this to me. But then some people are like, oh, this happened to me like several times, and now I'm never going to have that happen to me again. I guess how do you like do your boundaries? I'm curious.
So for me, for the latter of the explanations that you gave, I would say that I have done the latter, but I've come to recognize that creating boundaries out of those kinds of situations are creating boundaries out of trauma. And I try not to do that. The most basic example that I can think of like what you just said is, I've had my heart broken a bunch of times, so I'm never going to get in a relationship, or I'm never going to get in like a committed, serious relationship because it's not worth it. And like, that's the boundary, the wall that you created. Like you're making that decision out of trauma because of decisions that somebody else made that in turn hurt you. And you don't want those triggers. You don't want to be hurt. You want to protect yourself. So you see this as protecting yourself rather than just a response to trauma. But I found in learning to stop making decisions out of trauma, because I definitely did, however you want to put it, it doesn't allow me to live my fullest self. It doesn't allow me to experience life. It doesn't allow me to be true to myself either, because I'm only being true to my trauma. I'm only being true to how I was a victim in something or a survivor in something. And I'm doing a trauma episode for this podcast. And one of the things we talk about is exactly that, are the tools and decisions that we have gained and make from trauma that we've had in the past still serving us now. So like what you said of like, when you were a kid, in order for you to survive, you had to have a lot of mass. You had to be extremely flexible. You weren't allowed to have boundaries because you setting up boundaries could cause, consequences that hurt you. Now that you're no longer in that situation, you're like, well, I have to create boundaries now, and I don't have to do that anymore, because you see how exhausting it is to not have boundaries and to wear 15 different masks and be 15 different kinds of people. And like, that's what it is. It's like you're choosing to no longer define Charlie from her trauma, and now you're creating boundaries to allow yourself to be your best self. So I try to make decisions and create boundaries that are a response to my best self and not trauma. But that's hard because we all go through trauma. We all have traumatic experiences. I think one of the things that I think about when thinking about trauma is kind of like my own experiences with relationships, my experiences watching other people in relationships, like in particular my mom or my grandmother, who were both single moms, and kind of everybody that they dated after, you know, baby daddy was shit, like shit. Or they continued to stay in a toxic relationship, situationship with baby daddy, and it's just kind of like, you know, they don't value you, you know, they don't love you, they're not invested in you, but you're continuing to kind of give your whole self to them situation. So that was the only like understanding of a relationship that I knew. So when I started getting in my own relationships, I thought that's how I needed to approach it. And I was making decisions based off of like this very unstable understanding of what relationships were like. And I also saw, in particular, my mother because she was a single mom of two, be a very aggressive and independent and sometimes hard to get, but also very stubborn kind of woman. And I thought that's who I needed to be in relationships as well. That I needed to be like this badass, my way or the highway. I can take anything. Like, you can throw whatever you want at me, and I'll be able to take it because I'm my mother's daughter. I'm Natalia Pomerini. Like, I can live through it all. And that hurt me more than it helped me. Like, in the end of the day, being strong made me weaker. And like that decision to be strong through cheating, through abuse, through just a lot of emotional craziness on both sides, because I definitely delivered it as much as I received it. That in the end, it made me so much weaker because I wasn't being true to myself. And I was just acting based on what I saw and what I knew love to be, with quotation marks, and what relationships to be in quotation marks. And when I finally got into the relationship that I am with my partner, it took me such a long time to accept that I was actually in love, because I thought love was like a Love and Hip Hop episode. Literally, like, I thought it was supposed to be crazy. I'm supposed to be throwing shoes at you. Like, oh my goodness, like, I thought, like, we were supposed to be, like, bantering all the time, and there was, like, shit's always hitting the fan, but at the end of the day, we're gonna come together, we're gonna love together, we're gonna have great sex, eat some food, and call it a day. And, like, relationships aren't supposed to be like that. So like, in the first, like, year and a half of being in a relationship that wasn't that, I used to turn to my partner all the time and be like, I don't know if I love you, because I don't feel anything. Like, I don't feel anxious. I don't feel like I have high blood pressure. I don't feel like I need to scream. Like, it's too calm. Like, when is shit going to fuck up? And I used to tell my mom that all the time, and she used to think that I was crazy. And I'd be like, Mom, like, I'm waiting for either me to do some stupid shit or for him to do some stupid shit. And she's like, you need to stop doing that, because you're putting that energy out there, and, like, something's going to happen. And I'm like, okay, I'll try. But I didn't know love could be gentle. I didn't know love could be peaceful. I didn't know that I could feel whole and supported, and I didn't have to do the most to be loved. I could just be myself, and that was enough. And that was, like, this wild idea, but it took for me to learn that my understanding of being in a relationship and my understanding of the decisions that I made to be a partner with somebody came from trauma. And when I healed that, or not healed it, but worked on healing it, because I definitely still have some things that I need to work through now, even though we've been together for 5 years, have a kid, live together, all that stuff, there's still stuff there. Once I understood that there were things that I needed to heal, is when I was able to kind of, like, let go of making decisions through trauma.
Kind of what you were just saying, like, I feel like I call it generational curses. It's like a bitch. Like, literally, it's a lot of stuff that you see in your family, and you're like, okay, I need to do this. And just because I didn't have both of my parents and stuff, not like people are actively telling me about relationship and being, you know, a certain type of way. So I really was just watching television. I'm watching, like, as a youth, watching, like, High School Musical. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to be Troy and Gabriella. You know, maybe I'll walk into a library and the guy's going to see me and he's going to treat me nicely. But, you know, some of these guys, they like to play those games. But like just doing that, and then a lot of times in my family, like the women, like you were saying, are super strong. Like they're really leading their household. They're making decisions, and the guy is like working and, you know, providing, but not really providing like emotional support and stuff like that. Or a lot of times, like people are finding people, and I fall in the same traps too, like the fixer-upper type of guy. Like, you're like, okay, he has no job, he lives with his mom, and then you're just like, okay, but, you know, I'm going to inspire him to be better, because, you know, I think I'm an accomplished person, like, I like to accomplish things, so I'm like, oh my gosh, we can learn from each other, you can probably teach me this, and then I can do this for you, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, you're being so crazy. So, for example, like, with my ex or whatever, like, we was in, like, even little stuff. He, like, lives with his mom and things like that. Works for, like, Amazon delivering packages. But, like, in his home, like, they had no central air. It's hot as fuck. I'm like, he's like, you want to stay the night? I'm like, it's hot as hell. Like, I am burning up. I don't like it. You want to be cuddled up. Like, I hate people that like to cuddle, like, too hard. They're, like, crossing fingers and, like, crossing your legs. I'm like, we don't have to do that. We can lay next to each other, but we don't have to, like, touch every 5 seconds. So, like, I literally brought this man, like, an air conditioning unit. So we can live like that. And I'm like, why am I so freaking extra? Because then, you know, how the relationship ended, he, like, actually cheated and stuff. And now him and that girl is under my air conditioning. I'm like, give me my money back. But you can't, I don't want to be that petty, but it's just really, like, I was seeing things, and I know that, like, he wasn't where he wanted to be, but a lot of times I really get stuck on that potential, and that's kind of in my family, too. Like, you kind of see that potential of people, and they're kind of telling you, like, yeah, I know I'm not there right now, but I really want to do this. I want to go back to school. And so I'm, like, a goal-focused person. I don't know, I call it hustler mentality. Just because I didn't have parents and I went to like a Villanova and stuff, I had to figure out how to navigate and do stuff. So I'm like, okay, you want to go to school? So I know this person that can connect you here. Then you can take the entrance test. You can go to this community college. Like, I'm figuring out your life for you, because that's how I really had to figure out my life. Because when I graduated college, I didn't have health insurance. And if I didn't have a job, I had nowhere to live. So I'm like, boom, boom, like, I can help you. But then some people say that, but they really don't want to help, or they're lacking the action. But like how my family usually is, like, we're constantly helping you push forward. We're super strong, but we're helping you be stronger. And I'm like, I am not that kind of person. I need someone that has it all, you know, or at least working on something. Because, like, if you know, they say, you know, in a relationship, obviously we're like co-leading, but if you're not going anywhere, where can we go? Like, I'm trying to go left, you're trying to go right. We're not going to make it up the mountain and anything like that. And, like, with, like, TV being a big influence for me, really seeing those relationships, and, like, I'm crazy as hell sometimes, because I sit in my car, like, you ever think of situation you see on TV, and then, like, when I'm driving, I'm like, oh, if someone would have said that to me, I would be like, oh, hell no. Like, I be having arguments in my head. I'm like, all right, if he was to do that, I must do this. And, like, I'm crazy as hell. So a lot of times really preparing for those moments and stuff like that. And it was really interesting, because COVID dating is terrible. I tried it. I was like, not for me. But I did meet this guy on the app, and he was, like, great. He was, like, a minister and a teacher and stuff like that. And, like, everything was going good. He had a mission. He had a place and goals and stuff like that. But then, like, surprisingly, I'm pretty silly person, and he was very teacher-like. How I say teacher-like is like, he's like, no, we got to do it this way. And he was a math teacher at that. So he's like, it's step 1, 2, 3. I'm like, oh no. Like, he took me to like a skating ring, and like, he was like, he doesn't know how to dance or whatever, which is fine. But literally, it's COVID. So it's like 5 of us, 3 are employees. And then, like, Soulja Boy came on, and I was like, oh, shoot, remember this dance? You used to do it like this. And then he was like, I don't dance, and just walked away. I'm like, I need someone who can be silly. It's only us in here. Like, let's get crazy. But, like, it was really crazy, because eventually he broke up with me, and I was like, what? Like, what's happening? And he was just like, yeah, you're too considerate, you're too nice, you give me too much attention. And I was like, what the hell? But the crazy thing, that was a part of wearing my mask too, because like he was telling me about his prior relationship and how the girl didn't give him attention and like, you know, and like on the date she would always bring her friends and she didn't really care about him like that. So I was like, okay, you tell me what you need. How can I be the opposite of that? And that's even going out of my way. Like, yes, I got things to do. I'll cancel all my plans so I can be there for you every time you need me. And then he seen that and was like, hell no. I'm like, what? I'm being this person for you. I'm usually sillier than this. I'm dialing down myself. And you still don't like that. So that was really a situation that like more recent that I was just like, yeah. Like, it was really the nail in the coffin on that life. Like, I cannot afford to lose the person I'm becoming by sneaking back into old behaviors. But it's really hard because comfort zones. It's like, yeah, it's so comfortable to do this and, like, not having to be, you know, not being standing. I'm not a big confrontational person. So, like, I really value consistency. But I am really realizing how dumb that is as far as, like, because I'm like, okay, and this hurts me in other ways too, but, like, okay, if you met me and I was one person throughout your whole experience, I want you to have the same experience every time you meet me. But, like, shit happens in life. People change. But I'm like, ugh. But then sometimes also when I see that change in people, I'm like, just like, because, you know, I was in an abusive household, and I'm like, okay, I'm reading your behavior. Okay, so you don't like me anymore. Like, you used to call me every day on Monday, but then you missed a call. So now, oh, maybe I'm not your friend like I thought I was. And then I go into this habit of negative thinking. So really just seeing those behaviors and, like, I don't even like that. Like, I'm not that person. I'm changing. Why do I want, like, I don't want to be in a consistency trap to where I just have to be the same person. And even with negative behavior, like, in the past, like, I've been that person, like, if I was talking to somebody, like, oh, they text you at, like, I know some people have rules, like, don't text me after 9 or something like that. But, like, you know, like, guys that'll text you at, like, 3 a.m. and you're like, okay, historically, I do answer at 3, I have answered at 3 a.m. before. But it's like, do you want to be that person? Because conversation after 12 never goes anywhere positive. So I was just like, yeah, but I was still doing that. But I'm like, okay, he's used to me doing that, so I have to do it again. But now I'm like, fuck that. I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm not going to answer. If I don't want to answer, I'm not going to answer. I'm going to be out here savage, Meg Thee Stallion type savage. Like, forget it. But then I think it previously too, like, reputation was so big for me. As far as, like, that's why I really wanted to be consistent, because, like, even in my past situation, living with those family members, they would share stories, like, with my current family members. So, like, obviously they would see me and, like, my hair would be gone or something like that. And they'll be like, oh, what's going on? Or if I tell them, like, yeah, I keep getting whippings or whatever, they would share the narrative that, like, oh, she's just a bad person. Like, she's just being bad. She's being disrespectful. So now that has me in hyper-vigilant mode to protect my reputation, protect the narrative that people have for me, like, in my family, which I'm pretty sure if my aunts hear this, she's probably going to whip me. My other aunts, because they're like, oh, you have not went to church. But they would say, like, you know, I rarely share that I, like, curse, that I'm out here, like, having sex or anything like that. Like, they don't know any of that aspect. They know me as a calm church girl. Maybe they can assume that happens, but I kind of really keep that narrative. Like, I work hard, I go to work, I go to church, and I go home. Like, you know, so, but it's so much in between that. So now I'm just at a place where, like, I don't care. If you find out, I don't care. Like, I would, like, even on, like, Facebook and stuff like that, I was like, oh, make sure I don't put cursing in my statuses. Now, I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I am 26 years old. I'm grown. You don't control nothing over here. Like,
exactly. You make your own money. You got yourself this far. Like, you made yourself the badass Charlie that you are, and you don't owe anybody an explanation as to who you are and why you make the decisions that you do. But like you said, it's hard to get out of that, especially since you were so conditioned to be one particular kind of way and to perform, again, to survive it's hard to get out of that because you want to protect yourself and you want to make sure things feel stable and things feel secure. But it's always, you have to redefine what security and stability looks like for you. And if that means cutting people out of your life, cursing and posting naked pictures, then so be it.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And I have found, like, now that I have been learning myself and really walking in, like, who I truly am, like, people have been fleeing from me. Like, if they're not supposed to be there, they will eliminate themselves. Like, I don't even have to be like, hey, we can't talk. Like, they'll be like, I don't like your energy, so I'm out. You're like, okay, cool. All right, cool. I didn't care. So, like, you know, some things I was doing, go out of my way to, like, keep people around. Like, oh, you need this? I'll get this for you. Like, I'm not doing that. And then they'll be like, oh, I'm out, as long as it's no longer serving them. So I'm like, yeah, so bye. And you're not missed.
Yeah. The people that truly appreciate you and are here for you throughout, you know, you transitioning from being a bunch of people to being, like, the real Charlie are the ones that matter, are the ones that are going to stick around and stay.
Yeah, and I just feel like I've been able to have, like, great conversations with people, like, you know, like, people that are kind to your friends, but you don't have, like, a deeper level. But because I have been being myself, I've been able to really expand my relationships with other people because they're like, yeah, I dealt with that too. Like, we're able to have deeper conversation besides, like, what is the weather today? Oh, like, what have you been doing? You know? So I feel like it's deeper conversation, and that's what I'm, like, really enjoying seeing and learning from others too. Because I know I don't have this shit down. I don't know anything. I'm still learning stuff. I'm going to make mistakes. But, like, if I can learn from other people's mistakes or kind of where they gather, that really helps me as well.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. And just, like, when it comes to mistakes, when you make mistakes, having the room to forgive yourself. Because I think I know I have made some major mistakes in my life. And it's taken me till now, almost going on 27, to be like, shit, Natalia, you got to forgive yourself for this. Like, you need to stop, like, holding on to how much you fucked up. You fucked up why? And you got to, like, read the situation. You didn't know any better. You were responding from trauma. You thought that this is the only thing that you were supposed to do. This is what you understood made you feel happy, made you feel safe, made you feel protected, whatever it may be. And now you know better. So it's okay, and forgive yourself and move on, and, like, stop painting yourself to be like this monster, this bad person, this fake, this whatever it may be. Give yourself the room to forgive yourself when you fucked up, and own that you fucked up, and then move on.
Oh, yes. And I think I am super hard on myself, like, to be the best, because, like, at least, like, failure has never been an option for me. I'm like, I am not. Like, if the door is shut to me, I'm going to find a window. I'm going to find the mouse hole. I'm going in. Like, you can't tell me no, but, like, it's also having those mistakes and, like, being like, yeah, that was the extent to my knowledge at that time. I thought this was the best for me, but actually it was not. But also, like, forgiving yourself, because it's easy to kind of replay those things that you were told in your life. You're like, you do this because you fuck up. You're just a fuck up. You're a mistake. This is what you do. So you kind of have to get out of that thing like, no, I'm not. Like, that's not who I am. And that's why, I don't know, I have found it helpful to, like, write down stuff. So I am write down those things, like, just say what I am and what I am not. So I am, not the passing the torch. Like, when I left that family member's house, they're like, you're going to get pregnant. You're not going to graduate school. I've graduated school. I have my own apartment. I have my own car. Like, all that stuff you said, that's not who I am. I have, superseded a lot of situations that other people have not came back from. And I need to give myself grace too, to, like, be in the present, because my mindset is always the future. Like, I'm like, okay, like, even when I was in college, like I said, like, I'm like, I don't have health insurance. I need to find a job. I need to find a place to live, because no one's going to take care of me, basically. So I'm like, I've always been thinking in the future, but now I'm like, okay, I can calm down and be present. Like, let me enjoy what I have right now, the friends I have right now, the stuff I have right now. I don't always have to be thinking about my next best thing, which is, like, super hard being a millennial with social media and stuff. You're like, okay, somebody just got married, they had kids, they just bought a house, and, like, I'm here in my apartment eating a hot dog or a hot pocket. Don't judge me, people. I'm learning how to cook. But yeah, like, I'm just like, I need to be better. Like, I constantly need to be better. But, like, no, I need to, live in the growth that I'm doing right now. I need to live in the present and really, stop trying to be the next thing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of us because you and I went to college with each other, and we have like similar circles, or like our circles kind of Venn diagram into each other. A lot of people who like want to get their masters now, and then when I'm conversing with them about like, well, why do you want to get your masters? What do you want to get your masters in? They're like, oh, well, I don't know, but I feel like I need to get my masters, and I'm like, I've definitely felt that, because especially like graduating from a university like Villanova, like I feel like you're kind of expected to do more than just your bachelor's, one, and then society's pressure in general too. But then when I really sit down with myself and I sit down with the people who are like, I need to go get a master's because everybody else is like getting their PhD and becoming a lawyer and starting their business and having kids, all this other stuff, all of it. I'm like, but once you get that master's and you graduate, like, are you going to be any happier? Like, is anything really going to change? And that's what stopped me from pursuing to want to get another degree, because A, I don't know what the hell I want to do, and B, like, for me, in the long run, I have no desire to work for somebody else. I don't have like this dream job or in this dream company or anything like that. So if future me is working for myself, do I require myself to have a master's? Absolutely fucking not. Like, I am not going to go into more debt to sit here and say I got an MA in something, all of this other stuff. And it's just like, you really have to ask yourself, these goals that you see all of your other friends or your peers achieving, if you achieve that goal, like, is it really for you? Or is it to look good to somebody else? Is it to just look good on your resume if you really don't have like a goal to do with that resume in the first place? Like, I understand if you want to be a doctor and you're like, well, I need to go to medical school. Like, I haven't gone to medical school yet or whatever. That I understand. That stress I understand, because that is your overall goal. You're passionate about being a doctor. But if you're just like living and there isn't like anything that's really pulling you to a particular field or career or aspiration that requires you to get a degree, then fuck it. Chill with your bachelor's degree, chill with your high school degree, your GED, your, I don't know, middle school degree, whatever it may be. Just live your fucking life to the fullest. Yes, yes. And I understand there are difficulties that come with not having a degree, and it's becoming increasingly more difficult to even find a job with just a bachelor's degree. But there are so many other ways to find fulfillment in your life that doesn't necessarily A, involve money, and B, involve you doing more education for another degree.
Yeah, it's like we've been sold like one idea of success. And it's literally like many avenues of success can be several different things. And I think about that too. Like, I'm like, I should go back to school, but
all the time.
I still owe Villanova hella money. So I'm like, I can't afford to go to school. Like, I'll be paying Villanova till I die. My kid's gonna pay Villanova. Like, at this point, like, I'm just like, why the hell would I go back to school? Like, and then also, like, just not knowing what you do. But, like, I think everyone, like, has a different idea of success. And I think previously, like, hearing some people's ideas, like, I have a friend, and she's like, great. I actually met her in Texas, and, like, she is so free in who she is that I'm like, I hate you. Like, you're so cool, but I hate you. Because, like if they ask her to do something, she'll be like, no, I don't want to do that. And then, like, no, I'm not coming. Like, you know how you think sometimes you're like, I got to give an excuse. Like, I got to be like, I'm not feeling well. You know, she just like, no, I don't want to come, so I'm not coming. You're like, I'm like, what? But honestly, that's real to her. And, like, success, like, when we worked at a job together, they were like, well, you got to do this if you want to be the next thing. And she was like, no, I don't. Like, she's like, because I don't get that fulfillment. My fulfillment doesn't come from work. It comes from, other things that I'm doing. So I'm like, I really love that energy. But then I'm like, look at me putting on my mask like, oh, I could never be that person, but I really want to be. I wish I could be free to be like, yeah, no, I'm not coming. So don't count on me.
Mm-hmm. It's hard. It's definitely hard, especially when you're conditioned to be successful in this kind of like one idea of what success is supposed to be. When you do something that doesn't align with that, which is like going to school, getting the degree or degrees, getting the fancy job with the fancy title and all this other stuff, making a certain kind of amount of money. Like if you're not doing everything that works towards that, you feel like you're not going to achieve anything, and everything is going to fall apart, and everything's going to, you're not going to be able to get the house or start the business or whatever financial goals you may have that require money. And I've learned that that's not necessarily the case. I don't think that 15-year-old me would have looked at 26, almost 27-year-old me now and said, like, that's stable. And honestly, like, this is the most stable I have been in my whole life. And it's so crazy to think about because it definitely isn't an image of what I thought it would have been when I was younger and trying to figure out, like, I need to go to this kind of college and get this kind of degree and major in this and have this kind of job with this kind of salary in order for me to, like, be happy, take care of myself, take care of my family, and achieve all my goals. Like, I'm achieving my goals in a completely different picture than what I painted for my future when I was younger.
Oh, yes. And, okay, so I'm that kind of person that had a journal when I was young. So I used to write down everything that I wanted, and I'm like, okay, by 25, I'm going to have 2 twins. I'm going to be living in a house. I'm like, look at me. I have no kids. Like I said, I'm eating Hot Pockets. Like, look, they would say I am, like, have the worst life ever, but I'm super happy. Like, I'm growing my plants, I'm crocheting, I am relaxing, and I'm just taking time to, like, breathe and stuff like that. But, yeah, I can definitely relate because if I look at my old journals, I'm like, what the hell did I think? Like, and I think, like, even when you're younger, you really think, like, okay, when you become an adult, like, everything is going to become clear. Like, I can't see anything now, but, like, everything will be clear. But then it's like now I'm like you said, I'm 26, going on 27, and, like, I'm looking at people that are, like, 40 and 50, and they still don't know what's happening. They're, like, literally learning as they go as well. So I'm like, yeah, no one has this thing figured out, so why am I holding myself to this hard standard? Yeah, so I'm just super, super excited that you had me on here today, and I think just really as I'm growing and learning to be, like, true to myself, like, I'm still developing, what I like and what I don't like. But I think the part of, like, being honest, you got to be honest about, like, what you think and you feel and what you need and be able to communicate that to others. And for some people, they're not going to like it. But if they don't like it and they don't respect your boundaries, those are not people that you need to have in your life anyway. And I think also stepping into risk. So, like, it's a lot of paths from our families that we're used to following in, and they're like, and even your family will freak out, like, no, don't do that, because, they're used to one thing, but be that person that's not afraid. I'm trying to be that person that's not afraid to forge this new path. Like, no one has done this path. It's a dirt road. It may not look cute, but at the end, it's going to be rewarding. So I think that is just something really I'm working on, and I'm happy that I was really able to share today. And yeah, so as you see me, I'm going to be growing. I might not be the same person that you met when you first met me and things like that, but it's a process, and I'm really just finding myself and allowing myself time to exist and have my space.
Yes, I love that. And I support any decision you make in you being your best self. And it was honestly such a pleasure having you on today. I really hope that we get to record again in the future. We'll talk about so many different kinds of things. I also appreciate you being, like, super vulnerable and telling your story today. Not everybody's comfortable kind of being that open and all those different kinds of things. So I really appreciate that you felt comfortable enough to do that and to put that on the podcast. But yes, your energy was amazing. I love trying to match it today. And I look forward to everybody listening to this episode.
Yes, I'm so excited about this podcast. You're going to do wonderful things. You heard. We in here.
You are now listening to You Heard.